Speech off.
Chapter 8. On Monday, late in the day, Rachel stops into the dispensary? I'm not sure what this word is. I think it's an old term for like nurse's office. dispensary. We'll say dispensary. Dispensary to interview Brandy for a feature article she's writing for the school newspaper about the non-classroom staff. Sure, you can interview me, Brandy says. If you ask me, you look a hell of a lot perkier than you did last time I saw you. I guess so, Rachel says, and that's when she remembers, but only vaguely, Louis Olswanger showing up in the dispensary. She was feverish and can't remember why he was there, only that something about the memory is unpleasant. But what? It's not until the next morning when she walks into the school office and sees Louis's tall, thin figure standing at the desk that she remembers. Oh no, she thinks and starts backing out of the office. Yes, Miss Cooper, Mrs. Trudy says. Louis's head swings around. Nothing, Rachel says. I forgot my locker key, but that's all right. You forgot your key also? Mrs. Trudy says. She has a very loud voice. What is this, an epidemic? She takes the master key off of a board and hands it to Rachel. Okay, I entrust you with this, Miss Cooper. Give it to Mr. Olswanger when you're done, but you return it. Rachel and Louis walk to the lockers in silence. She'd say something if she could think of something to say. The trouble is, all she can think of is what Brandy said about her. The upchuck in the sink. That poor little phrase has wiped out her brain. In silence, she uses the master key. In silence, she waits while Louis opens his locker, and in silence, she takes the key back from him. Later, she remembers that the reason he was in the dispensary was to ask about her. She should have said something. Thank you. That was nice of you. Sorry I dropped a book on your foot. On the other hand, he didn't say anything at the lockers either. No surprise. What is there to say to a girl you think of as the upchuck in the sink? Please, just stay out of my way, she prays silently, passing Louis in the hall later that day. But her prayers must have gone unanswered. Or else she said it the wrong way. Because for the rest of the week, in some kind of cosmic joke, Louis shows up everywhere Rachel does. That very afternoon, she goes to the library after school just as Louis is coming out. This time he says, hi, so she does too. Wednesday morning, early, she drops into the school newspaper office in the basement to talk to Ted Pickens, the editor, about the article she's working on. Nope, Louis is still there, but he's in the next room. Olswanger, she overhears clearly as she walks, is going to try his hand and get some ads for the paper. Is that right, Olswanger? Thursday, lunch hour. The sun is shining and Rachel goes outside to eat. She's not the only one with this idea. There's a vast throng of kids milling around the front steps, sitting on the stone wall. People are playing frisbee and touch football all around the lawn. Rachel heads for her own favorite spot, an out-of-the-way corner near the parking lot. She'll put her back against the warmed brick wall, eat her sandwich, and read her book. It's called Frost in Winter. It's about another time, another place, and a girl from a family utterly unlike hers. Rachel loves it. As she rounds the corner, she trips over someone's outstretched feet, someone's large, scruffy white sneakers. Even before she looks up, even as she's recovering herself and automatically saying, "Oh, sorry," even before she hears the other person, this person who's taken her special place stumble over his apologies. No, my big feet. She knows it. Louis Olswinger grins feebly at her. Sorry. Me too. She walks on by, keeps going around the corner. But that's not all. Over the weekend, the Dew Oily Cardet Company is at the Civic Center to perform HMS Pinafore. Rachel's father is a fan of D'Oyly Cardet. He has all the D'Oyly Cardet albums and has never missed a performance when they came to town. It's been a tradition over the years for Rachel to go with him. This year, she would like not to go. She has several reasons, not the least being that every year, just as they get into the car, her father says, "Well, Mouse, going on a date with your daddy." She doesn't think she wants to hear that again. She knows she's socially retarded. Does she have to be reminded of it? Then there are all the other rites that would take place, the things they would do every year and would surely do again this year. Going out after the show to eat hot banana splits. Oh, that sounds good. Singing Gilbert's and Sullivan on the drive home. Rachel with her tin ear following Manny's wheezy bass. I'm called Little Buttercup, dear Little Buttercup, though I could never tell why. And listening to her father telling her stories about Gilbert and Sullivan. It was Gilbert who wrote the lyrics for the operas, Rachie. She knows that. Sullivan wrote the music. Now think about this, Rachel. They wrote these operettas more than 100 years ago, and people still get pleasure out of them. Every year she thinks about that. Rachie, did I ever tell you the story about Gilbert being kidnapped? Of course he has, every single year. You see, he wasn't kidnapped because he was the famous Gilbert. It happened a long time before, when he was just a baby. His parents were wealthy, like rich. They had to pay 25 pounds of English money, of course, to have him returned. At that time, it was quite a sum of money. They say that experience affected him. When he grew up, he had everything. He was handsome, talented, famous, and you know what? What? She knows. Gilbert turned out to be a terrible person who quarreled with everyone. And finally, after the performance and after the banana splits and the stories, she and her father will creep into the house, bent over like two cartoon characters, tiptoe with elaborate care through the dark kitchen and into the dining room, through the swinging doors and into the little front hall with its three-legged table, ornate mirror, and old black back phone. Shh, 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 Manny will say, "Your mother, shh, we don't want to wake her up." But Shirley is never asleep. She always waits up for them, and Manny always produces a carton of ice cream he's bought for her. And she always acts surprised, and they always sit down and eat the ice cream with her, and Manny always says, "Oh, we shouldn't be doing this. If you could see what Mouse and I had already, you'd be shocked." And he always looks at Rachel and he winks. "So, Dad," Rachel says that morning while they're eating breakfast, "maybe I won't go with you this evening." She keeps her voice casual. "I'll save you the money." "What are you talking about, Rachel? I have the tickets already. We've planned this for months." "Ma could go with you, Dad." "That's not my kind of music," her mother says. "I like Tony Martin." "Sweetheart," her father says, "what's the matter? You don't want to go with me?" And he looks just so disappointed. Rachel lets the whole thing drop. That evening, after supper, getting ready to go out, she starts thinking about M.B. Cooper, her niece. M.B., Phil's daughter, is only 3 months younger than Rachel, a head taller, and in this last year has suddenly come to look at least 3 years older. MB and her little brother Taylor had flown from Spokane to visit over the winter holidays. As usual, MB slept in Rachel's room. They had always been friendly enough, though MB never liked that Rachel was her aunt. "It makes you seem too old," she would complain. But now something else came between them. Socially, MB seemed to have made giant leaps beyond Rachel. Touching the tiny silver unicorns in her ears, MB had said, "Brian gave them to me." "Who's he?" "One of my boyfriends." "One?" Rachel said. "Want to see something?" She pulled down her jeans and showed Rachel a tiny rose tattoo on her thigh. "My mother would kill me if she knew. I did it for Jeffy." Now, as Rachel slips long beaded earrings into one ear and a gold hoop into another, she sighs and reflects that if way across the country in Spokane MB is going out tonight, it sure isn't with her daddy. "So, Mouse," her father says as she settles herself into the car, "going out on a date with your old father again." "Dad, how old are you?" "Ah, compared to your grandfather, not that old. But compared to how old I used to be, very old." He laughs at his own joke. Downtown, he lets her out in front of the Civic Center. "I'll find parking. You go ahead," he says. Their seats are first row balcony. She sits down, takes off her jacket. The orchestra is tuning up. There's the buzz of people entering, the sparkle of the lights, the fresh, crisp smell of her program. Rachel starts feeling glad that she's here. "Excuse me?" Rachel stands to allow him to pass. And no, this is not possible. Louis Olswanger sits down 3 seats away from her. "Well," Louis says, looking at her, raising bony shoulders, "it must be fate." Rachel taps her program against her lips. Is there anything to do when fate overtakes you? Except give in? "You're probably right," she says, and they smile at each other. Newsflash, my boy voice might not be very great, so just let me know.